It was the kind of July heat that glued dresses to skin and made ceiling fans whine like tired violins. From the shade of my porch, I watched Oak Falls shimmer mailboxes warping in the mirage. Children's bicycles abandoned under oaks too exhausted to rustle. I had turned 42 2 months earlier, and with the birthday came a hush I couldn't name. A hush that settled between heartbeats and asked what I had done with the bright-eyed girl I once was. Daniel had left last winter, taking the espresso machine and the dog we rescued on our honeymoon. The house remained, but the echoes inside it belonged to someone else. Across the street sat a pale blue cottage, shuttered since Easter. That morning, a dented pickup rolled into its drive and disgorged a young man all limbs and sun-bleached hair who wrestled a guitar case from the truck bed. He could not be older than 19, that perilous edge where adulthood pretends to fit. For a breath, I wondered what his laugh sounded like, then scolded myself for caring. Storm clouds stacked over the cornfields by 3 o'clock, purple skirting their bellies. I wandered to the mailbox, an excuse to be outside when thunder rolled. The boy was taping a handwritten house-sitting deliveries here signed to the gate. "Hey, I'm Finn," he said, green eyes bright despite the dimming sky. I introduced myself as Elena, almost forgetting the polite Miss Thunder grumbled again. Rain perfumed the air with pennies and promise. Rain arrived brutally, shards of silver slamming the pavement. Finn sprinted behind me onto my porch, clutching the guitar beneath his shirt. We stood dripping, laughing at nothing and everything. I poured lemonade, hand steady, voice not. Between rumbles we spoke, his aunt's honeymoon in Crete, my freelance. Editing, the best diner pie in town. His attention was a spotlight, and I basked, ashamed of how seldom I felt seen. Lightning cracked nearby. Instinctively, I touched his arm, then retreated, cheeks burning hotter than the day. When the rain eased to a hush, Finn promised to repay the shelter with a barbecue the next evening. I watched him cross the street, shoes splashing, shoulders golden in the late sun. That night, guitar chords drifted through my window, mingling with the chirr of frogs. I lay awake tracing fault lines of desire I thought had fossilized. It wasn't the boy, I told myself. It was what he represented, a pulse in a life gone still. Saturday burned hotter. I baked peach tarts, cursing my vanity, then crossed to the cottage at dusk. Fairy lights zigzagged over the deck where Finn flipped burgers. 2 college friends lounged nearby, Maya and Cole, sun-glazed and loud. Conversation bubbled, music festivals, meteor showers, whether love was a scam. I offered, practice wisdom. They countered with reckless optimism. Yet every few minutes my awareness tracked Finn's proximity the way parched. Roots chased water dot when the friends disappeared indoors for ice, the night grew taut. Fireflies kindled, cicadas muted. Finn's gaze held mine, serious now. "You look sad sometimes," he said quietly. The honesty startled me. I admitted that endings can echo longer than beginnings. He brushed the back of my hand, nothing more, and the porch light might as well have exploded. Footsteps returned, conversation resumed, but the moment lodged like a splinter dot close to midnight. I excused myself. Finn walked me to the gate, guitar still slung over his shoulder. Humid air clung between us, thick with words unsaid. "Thank you for coming, Elena," he murmured, voice rasped by charcoal smoke and possibility. I wanted to tell him that my name hadn't sounded alive in years until he used it. Instead, I nodded, stepping backward until the street lay like a river between us. He stayed at the gate until I reached my porch, and the distance felt both safe and unbearable. Sleep refused to claim me. I padded through the house, a ghost inspecting her own life photographs from vacations that now felt fictional. A shelf of travel guides Daniel once promised we would open together. In the study, I lifted my long-abandoned journal, and words spilled like sweat. I am terrified of becoming invisible. The confession looked desperate in ink, yet honest. I wrote more about how Finn's laugh had yanked me from a cavern of routine, how guilt tasted like metal on my tongue, how possibility could burn brighter than fear if I let it. When I closed the journal, my pulse still raced. Outside, crickets sang in the heat, softly encouraging the confession. Inside, moonlight painted the floor silver and unforgiving. I pressed a cool glass to my throat, thinking of lines I refused to cross and the reasons those lines existed. Beyond the screen door, a tentative chord drifted from Finn's guitar soft, searching as though asking permission to cross its own border. A sound slipped into the room, settled against my heartbeat, and promised a summer unlike any I had survived. Sunday rose on a shimmer of heat and unanswered questions. By the time cicadas began their metallic chant, I was pacing, listening for any sound across the street. At noon, Finn appeared, barefoot, grinning, holding a fistful of Queen Anne's lace. "For the hostess," he said. I let him inside before I remembered my cotton sundress was nearly transparent in the sunlight. We slipped the flowers into a mason jar, pretending the gesture was casual. He asked to see where I made sentences behave, so I led him to the study. Dust floated through shafts of gold above the oak desk. My journal lay closed, still warm. From midnight confessions, Finn tapped my old typewriter. "Heavy words, only the true ones," I answered. "Read them to me." "That assumes I wrote any." He laughed. "You're glowing." Embarrassment flared, so I fled downstairs and thrust his guitar at him. He perched on the sofa arm and let minor chords unfurl soft, patient searching. His voice described abandoned highways and hearts that ran out of gas at dawn. Without warning, tears leaked from my eyes. What would fix that? He asked. "Water," I blurted. "The quarry." His grin was answer enough. 20 minutes later, we rattled down a gravel road, windows open, July wind tasting of pine and dust. The abandoned quarry glimmered cobalt. I slipped out of the dress, revealed a plain black swimsuit. Finn shut his shirt, shoulders lean, freckles bright. Electricity buzzed in the air before thunder even formed. "On 3?" he offered. I jumped on 2. Cold water stole breath, grief, everything. When I surfaced, he was beside me, laughing. We swam to a limestone ledge and sat waist-deep, dragonflies stitching sunlight on our arms. He spoke Mother Gone at 15. Fear of silence. I admitted I had stopped adding dreams to my list. Last line, dance under lightning. He called it unfinished business. Storm clouds heaped overhead. At the truck, he draped a towel around my shoulders. His fingers grazed my neck and lit every nerve like fuse wire. Rain hammered the windshield on the ride home. At a red light, he asked, "Hear my new piece tonight?" After 8, I whispered. Power died at dusk, candles turning the walls honey. Finn arrived with a notebook, rain darkening his hair. We sat on the rug, knees nearly touching. He read a prose poem about a woman leaping early and waking the sky. Hearing myself myth-turned made my pulse stumble. Too honest? He asked. Exactly. Honest. He brushed damp hair behind my ear. Our foreheads touched, breaths mingling. Then headlights swept the window, and conscience surged in. I stood. Tea? The stove was lifeless. We laughed over cold lemonade, our glasses clinking like fragile treaties. He left before midnight, promising sunrise music. I watched his silhouette dissolve into rain. I added a new line to my journal. Rewrite the map. Morning smelled of wet earth and danger. Coffee brewed on an old camp stove. Finn knocked, arms full of batteries and a transistor radio. "Barter," he said. We sat on the kitchen floor, listening to blues crawl through static. "I leave for Chicago in 3 weeks." He confessed. The news cleaved me. "Wonderful," I lied. 3 weeks can be a lifetime," he murmured, thumb brushing mine. "Mrs. Dorsey appeared at the screen door, declaring power would return at noon. Her eyes measured everything. Gossip sprouted before she left the steps. Finn exhaled. We could disappear for one day, no eyes, no clocks. The thought fizzed through my veins, half terror, half invitation. Yet Daniel's toothbrush still slept in a drawer, and the gap between our birthdays felt as wide as the quarry wall. "Give me time," I whispered. He nodded. "The song's waiting." He set the radio on the counter, blues singer moaning about impossible choices, then left. The kitchen felt cavernous afterward. I pressed my palm to the countertop where his had rested, searching for leftover warmth. Outside, clouds gathered again, dark with the promise of lightning. My heart answered like a struck bell. That afternoon, after showering away quarry sand, I wandered the hallway studying photographs, Venice canals, Irish cliffs, our honeymoon shadows blurred on a Greek wall. I tried reading, trimming basil, even balancing the checkbook, but every ticking second marched me closer to 8 o'clock, and the promise of Finn's knocked out at 6:30, I uncorked a bottle of rose, telling myself it was for the humidity. 2 glasses in, courage blossomed and doubts shrank. Maybe age gaps were rules drafted by people who never tasted a July like this one. Still, when candle shadows jittered on the plaster, I saw my reflection hair loose, eyes bright, mouth too willing, and nearly snuffed every flame. Instead, I placed a Billy Holiday record on the turntable and let the needle crackle like distant rain. 7-50-5. The power surrendered with a sigh. In the hush, my pulse became a drum. Finn arrived at 8 on the dots off footfalls. Notebook clutched like scripture. A lightning flash froze us in silhouette. My rope cinched tight, his grin reckless. The thunder afterward felt like the world daring us forward. Later, after he left, lightning kept staring through the windows. I stood barefoot on the porch, allowing rain to baptize every rule I had ever obeyed. Finn's guitar sent one aching note into the storm, then silence followed. I whispered, "I'm still here." Equal parts prayer and promise. When dawn seeped indoors, it carried the scent of beginnings, unwise, undeniable, alive. The hush that had haunted me since Daniel's departure was gone, replaced by a crackle that smelled of ozone and wet pine. Inside, I roamed the quiet rooms, touching furniture like artifacts, the reading chair where Daniel planned children, the staircase we painted midnight blue. Each object felt both loyal and traitorous. I realized I could love memories and still betray them. Love isn't a museum, it's a wildfire, and the season had turned combustible. Alive, heat returned with a vengeance. I woke before dawn, sheets twisted, last night's rose glinting like a dare. Finn's final note still vibrated behind my ribs. At 6, sunlight speared the blinds across my skin prison or invitation, coffee brewed. Across the street, the cottage crouched silent. A scrap of paper lay on my porch. Meet me where the railroad forgets to end. 9 a.m., every sensible cell yelled, no. Yet my pulse chose yes. By 9, I reached the abandoned spur line. Finn waited on the last rail, guitar case at his feet, wind, inventing music through his hair. Seeing me, he smiled with the fragile arrogance of someone certain he is already a memory. We walked until gravel surrendered to weeds. Birds argued overhead, crickets tried to referee. Finn spoke first. Last night felt like a sentence without a period. Some sentences never need finishing, I said. Then they haunt the margins. He spread a blanket beside a sapling. That would outlive us. The guitar case held 2 apples and a folded Chicago map. Black ink circled an address. Music school audition, he said. I never told anyone. Failing in private is easier. You won't fail. Will you come? Hear me if I do? Chicago is loud, I answered. I prefer whispers. He traced the inside of my wrist. Whispers belong in libraries or bedrooms. Which are you? Sun climbed, cicadas rose. I kissed the corner of his mouth brief, trembling, decisive. His hand cupped my jaw. The world contracted to heartbeat and heat. Age dissolved for one impossible moment, but ghosts barged in, Daniel laughing in grace, Mrs. Dorsey's stare, my sister's judgment. I pulled back. I'm not afraid of gossip, Finn said. I'm afraid of aftermath. You'll leave footprints. I mopped the floor. We lay shoulder to shoulder anyway, counting a hawk's lazy circles. He played chords that mapped constellations across my chest. Our mouths met again soft, searching, stopping short of ruin, while lightning flickered in a cloudless sky. The smell of ozone mixed with cut grass and something like goodbye dot thunder reel this time chased us to my car. Rain drummed hard. At his gate, he kissed my palm. Relief and ache wrestled inside me. That night, Daniel called. The dog had run away. Did I know her hiding spots? His fatigue, my polite answers, felt like strangers reciting an old play. After hanging up, I wrote until dawn, pages about thunder that baptizes and women who ignite. Morning delivered consequences. In the grocery line, Mrs. Dorsey whispered to Mrs. Patel, eyes slicing toward me. Maya and Cole drove past, yelling Finn's name. Shame pricked, but pride flared hotter. Back home a note waited. Streetlights. Tonight. Twilight smeared tangerine across trees. I perched on my porch swing while Finn, Maya, and Cole gathered beneath the lamp outside my gate. Finn sang a song I'd never heard yet knew by heart lyrics mined from my bloodstream. A bruised house. A storm-shaped woman. A kiss that rewrote gravity. Neighbors drifted closer, curiosity. Beating prudery. When the final chord died, hesitant applause rose. Finn's gaze found mine. I gave a tiny nod. He pressed 2 fingers to his lips, then toward me, and disappeared. Stars overtook the street. The hush around me felt alert, not accusing. Inside, the air smelled of wet pine and possibility. The drive west had followed County Road 12, a ribbon of asphalt that once carried Daniel and me to antique fairs and Sunday picnics. Every mile marker felt like shedding another layer of who I had been. Soy stalks bowed in the hot wind, roadside Queen Anne's lace nodding conspiratorially, as though nature itself colluded with my recklessness. I rolled the windows down. Country. Radio crackled static and steel guitar. When a love ballad from 1988 drifted through the speakers, I laughed aloud, the sound feral and free. While we lay on the blanket, he offered memories the way some men give flowers careless handfuls. Roots, still clinging to soil. Losing his mother in a house fire, nights in foster basements that smelled of bleach, teaching himself chords on a pawnshop guitar. I answered with my own confession, once dreaming of translating poetry in Paris, but letting mortgages and polite dinner parties turn the dream sepia. His fingers intertwined with mine sandpaper and silk, and we sat until our shadows fused. Back home, after Daniel's call, lightning strobed through the curtains, revealing photographs I had removed from frames but never discarded ghost. Galleries hidden in drawers. Finn's words echoed in the storm. 3 weeks can be a lifetime. I realized lifetimes could also be 3 minutes if every sense stayed awake. When the neighbors dispersed, Mrs. Dorsey lingered at her gate. She didn't scold. Instead, she said, almost kindly, "Summer rewinds fast, dear. Make sure you're taping the parts you want to keep." Her unexpected mercy vibrated louder than judgment. I spent the night packing and unpacking a single leather weekender. Books, too heavy. Laptop, too official. Finally, I chose 2 dresses, Finn's flannel, a toothbrush, and the half-filled journal. On the last page I wrote, "Rules are stories someone else told first." I left the porch light burning, not as caution, but as a lighthouse aimed inward. At dawn, an envelope lay on the mat. Finn's Chicago map, address circled, and 1 line, "Come if the thunder still calls you." 3 train departure times followed. The last left 2 hours before my next birthday. I stood in the doorway, sun warming the floorboards, heart drumming like a flock of wings. Wind rustled maple leaves, sounding eerily like a crowd chanting go. Across the street, a guitar case snapped shut. I exhaled, tasting rain though the sky was clear, and stepped inside to pack. Outside, the cicadas began their hymn, as if blessing reckless departures and untidy hearts everywhere.